Most welcome to Good Morning Uganda. It's it's day number 4, if that is the right word to use, of the National Population and Housing Census here in Uganda. And here we are for a fresh new week. How are you doing? Welcome on board to Good Morning Uganda here on your national broadcaster. Myself, Jerome Paul Sonko, Chantal Oliver Kandinda, and of course, Olive Monica Najuma in here to make sure that we gear you up and prepare you for what a great week it does look like. And of course, by the end of this week, we shall be done with our population census, if you come to think of it. I don't know whether you've been counted, but a colleague of ours in studio has already been counted. She will be sharing with us the experience of being counted, how the enumeration process found her, and was she ready to be counted, because that also matters. But hey, how are you doing? How was your weekend? I want to believe for the Arsenal fans like myself, the weekend was okay, and for the Manchester United fans, it wasn't. But nonetheless, from the political arena in Uganda, President Museveni is questioning the Commissioner Awards or the Service Awards in Parliament. That is also something that has sparked up huge conversations in the country. But not only that, across the East African region yesterday, there was a glitch, if I'm to put it in that way, in regards to internet connection. Many of the Ugandans were switching off their phones, restarting simply because the internet speed was not moving as fast as it should be. But nonetheless, let's dive into what has been making headlines across the weekend. That means I'll first of all check in on the team in Studio B to see how they're doing and how geared up they are for this new week. But first, Chantal Oliver Kandinda, after a long while, is back with the team, and I should tell you, with a fresh new look as well. Looking very excited, looking very pretty, and ready to inspire you. Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Sonko. How are you?
I am doing okay. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I've missed you guys. It's good to be back.
I don't know whether you were counted, though.
Not yet. I don't know what happened. I stayed home all through the weekend, but I didn't see anyone come to count me.
All right. And I want to believe that you've had a wonderful weekend, by the way, because at the backdrop of everything, we've been having lots of news making headlines in the country.
Well, I've had a restful one, but of course, when it comes to the news side, a lot has been happening. I have a number of questions. I wish I could have a sit down with the president when it comes to his recent comments on the awards being given to the commissioners.
He was right on the money, if I'm to put it in that way. And speaking of the president, let me check on Olive Monica Najuma, someone who would be highly interested in a topic of that nature, if you ask me. But of course, we shall have to first hear from her. Good morning, Olive.
Oh, good morning, Jerome. How was your weekend?
My weekend was okay, and here I am again looking happy for a fresh new week. I don't know how you are, and I don't know whether you are counted.
Oh, I am great. I'm great. It's a fresh new week. I'm excited, new to see what this week brings on board. And yes, I was counted. At least the enumerators came to my home, and they didn't only come, they knew how to use the tabs. They were functioning pretty well, vis-a-vis what I've heard from some other parts of the country.
Hope you didn't offer.
Was it a male enumerator yesterday?
I beg your pardon?
Was it a male enumerator or it was a female?
Sonko, what are you trying to do?
No, I'm just trying to imagine.
Right now you're attacking America, but it was female enumerators.
I don't know what is your comment on whatever is happening in the country, more so with the president's stand on the ongoing situations in Parliament.
Well, according to the president, he was questioning whether or not the service awards are legal. And if they're not legal, what is the Attorney General doing about it? And I like the part where he said that we should not just morally talk about these. We should actually seek to politically bring to book the people that are concerned if it is found that the awards were illegal. And of course, many questions that the president raised, and I'm happy that he did, although of course some people are wondering, the president has spoken up a bit late, but for me, I believe in the concept of better late than never. He has now queried this, and we wait to see, will they be asked to return the money or not? Because when you think about it, Jerome, a lot of money was exchanged by just a group of people. $500 billion shillings to the former leader of opposition, Matthias Mpuga. Then the other commissioners each got 400 million shillings. And the president did say, we are struggling to find money for infrastructure like roads, like hospitals, and people are here sharing money. Where did the money come from? Why are they getting this money? So I'm waiting to see how this is going to be. I saw the IGG saying that she's also going to look into some of the queries that have been raised even against the Speaker of Parliament. So we'll wait and see.
Well, we're indeed waiting to see what will happen at the end of it all. But nonetheless, to you, dear Ugandan, you need to be prepared, because at any time from this week, you will be counted. An enumerator, whether a female or male, I hope I will get a female though, so that we can get to be counted in one way or the other. But nonetheless, here we are, and of course we're going to kick it off with our local news, because we've gathered for you lots of that. As Chantal Oliver Kandina takes us to the internationals, we'll start with the locals with Olive Monica Najuma.
As we start our local news, we know that Uganda will be heading to the polls come 2026. And the Deputy Speaker, Thomas Taiwa, says President Museveni should guide the 2026 election candidacy discussion. Taiwa made the remarks at the belated Women's Day celebrations in Mubende district. Women gathered at regular primary in Katambis, Mubende for belated Women's Day celebrations. Ambience Kabanda Kasambia's Member of Parliament and Secretary General of the Patriotic League of Uganda arrived with leaders and friends. The Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Thomas Taiwa's arrival signaled the start of the celebrations. And Minister Anifa Kawoya and members of Parliament were also present. Kabanda thanked General Muhoozi Kainerugaba for appointing him as Secretary General. The deputy guest concluded the day's speeches. Now moving on, security forces in Mityana district have apprehended 2 individuals obstructing census enumerators in Kyoganyi village, Kalangalo sub-county. The deputy RDC Prosi Mwanjuzi told UBC that the suspects' neighbors at Chiongai Trading Center drove enumerators away, citing unclear reasons. Deputy Resident District Commissioner Prosi Mwanjuzi intervened, hunting down offenders and urging cooperation. Suspects admitted guilt, citing ignorance, while others called for better sensitization and involvement of local leaders. Mwanjuzi urged Mityana residents to ensure they participate in the census. The arrested suspects were later released on bond after being counted at Mutetema police station. Now in other news, it is 11 years since His Majesty the Kabaka Ronald Muwenda Mutebi II appointed Charles Peter Mayiga as Katikiro of Buganda. Through his journey as Katikiro, Mayiga has had successes and challenges, and his memorable speech on different occasions in his 11th year in office. On 12 May 2013, Charles Peter Mayiga assumed office of Buganda's Katikiro as at the event which took place at Katikiro's official residence Butikiro in Mengo. Yesterday, 12 May 2024, marked 11 years while serving in that office. The following are some of Mayiga's 11th year achievements. Since Katikiro, Mayiga was appointed, he introduced projects to change people's livelihoods. Among these is the Mwanyi Terimba campaign that has yielded results. On 23rd April this year, Katikiro Mayiga visited coffee farmers in Butambala to assess the Mwanyi Terimba campaign. Another historical success was the restoration of Kasubi tombs, to which over 9 Minister of Eswatini and Prince of Duke. This has made Buganda Kingdom's image shine globally.
In the health sector, the kingdom is at the forefront in the fight against HIV/AIDS, with Kabaka being the ambassador to the African continent. The kingdom's relationship with the central government, according to MIGA, has improved despite denying them a federal system. In MIGA's term, it is where we witness Kabaka missing key events where he is expected, like Nkuka on 31st December, flagging off runners for his birthday on 7th April 2024, including not attending his birthday celebrations on every 13th April. This made people question the health status of the Kabaka, and MIGA responded. The Katikiro is concerned over the sharing of national cake, where districts that contribute much to the country's revenue are given portions in service delivery. Uganda is waiting for more from Katikiro MIGA. That is when Kabaka still keeps him as the Katikiro. Away from that, the Works and Transport Minister, General Katumba Wamala, has saluted President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for creating an enabling environment for the Indian community in Uganda, whose peaceful stay in the country has greatly contributed to the nation's economy. General Katumba Wamala was addressing hundreds of the Indian community in Kampala who had gathered for Bollywood musical Dhamaka, a charity dinner for the Indian community living in Uganda to raise funds to support community works. Hundreds of the Indian community has gathered in Kampala for a musical charity dinner. The Bollywood musical Dhamaka has attracted the Indian family in Uganda. Both the Indian High Commission of Uganda and that of Sri Lanka attended the occasion. Ministers Dr. Balam Barugahara and General Katumba Wamala started thanking President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for resettling Indians back to Uganda. They appreciated the enabling environment to do their businesses. The Works and Transport Minister, General Katumba Wamala, addressed the ceremony as the chief guest. The event's proceeds will be channeled to community works in Uganda. Well, that does it for the local news. Now we cross over back to Jerome Paul.
And well, of course, away from our local news this morning, Chantal Oliver Kandinda takes us away from Uganda with what is making headlines across the continent and elsewhere across the globe.
Well, across the globe, we are starting off with Russian President Putin is set to replace his long-standing ally, that is Sergei Shoigu, as a defense minister, the Kremlin announced. The 68-year-old has been in the role since 2012 and is to be appointed Secretary of Russia's Security Council. Papers published by the upper chamber of the Russian parliament said Mr. Shoigu will be replaced by Deputy Prime Minister Andrei Belosov. Mr. Shoigu has played a key role in Russia's war with Ukraine. Russian government papers show that Mr. Putin wants Mr. Shoigu to take over from Nikolai on the powerful Security Council. It is not yet clear what Mr. Patrushev's new post will be. Mr. Shoigu has close links with President Putin, often taking him on fishing trips in his native Siberia. He was given the defense portfolio despite having no military background, which rankled with some of the top brass. Moving on, at least 300,000 Palestinians have fled Gaza's Rafah, according to the United Nations, as Israel expands its offensive in the southern city and confronts Hamas fighters there. Israel sends troops back into northern Gaza, with witnesses reporting sighting tanks in the Jabalia refugee camp as well as in Sabra and Zaytun neighborhoods. The ground assault follows a night of intense air raids in the area. Egypt says it will formally join the lawsuit filed by South Africa against Israel at the International Court of Justice, which accuses Israel of violating its obligations under the Genocide Convention in the Gaza Strip. At least 35,034 people have been killed and 78,755 wounded in Israeli attacks on Gaza since the October 7th, while the revised death toll in Israel from Hamas's October 7th attacks stands at 1,139, with dozens of people still held captive. And lastly, South Africa has asked the International Court of Justice to order Israel to withdraw from Rafah as part of additional emergency measures over the war in Gaza, the United Nations top court said. In the ongoing case brought by South Africa, which accuses Israel of acts of genocide against Palestinians, the International Court of Justice in January ordered Israel to refrain from any acts that could fall under Genocide Convention and ensure its troops commit no genocidal acts against Palestinians. Israel has reportedly said it is acting in accordance with the international law in Gaza and has called South Africa's genocide case baseless and accused Pretoria of acting as the legal arm of Hamas. In filings published on Friday, South Africa is seeking additional emergency measures in light of the continuing military action in Rafah, which it calls the last refuge for Palestinians in Gaza. The city in the south of Gaza is crammed with hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians living in dire conditions, and there have been warnings that an Israeli ground offensive would trigger a humanitarian catastrophe for the civilians. And that's it for what is happening across the globe.
And all at the front pages of our papers this morning in our dailies, we start off with the New Vision, which is highlighting IGG to present among reports to President as the UK faulted for rushing with sanctions. Then also government to recruit over 2,500 teachers. Find details of that report in today's New Vision. Elsewhere, floods cause mayhem in eastern Uganda, a pictorial of the situation in most parts of eastern Uganda after the floods continue to wreak havoc. Then also SDG 17, are states taking action? More details within today's New Vision. Then Dr. Watiti's 30-year battle with HIV. Read about this from Dr. Stephen Waititi, sharing his story of living with HIV for over 30 years. The Daily Monitor, President Museveni speaks out on members of parliament cash awards. Disaster, 5,000 have been displaced as Lake Victoria water levels rise in Masaka. Also, how midwife delivered 5 babies at once. An interesting report on census extended in Kampala by 1 day as Biopharma gets nod to manufacture drugs. Then also, in the other news, Uganda to experience slow internet. Why is that so? The Daily Monitor gives you details as Uganda and other East African countries will experience low-speed internet due to damage to several underneath fiber optic cables. Then on the other side, how Busoga moved from Chabazinga fights to unity. Read about it. In the Healthy Living, Rwenzori sub-region decries unequal access to HIV services. Then we head to Kenya because members of parliament let Linturi off the hook in probe, says the Daily Nation, as a scandal impeachment motion had been overwhelmingly endorsed by 149 MPs against 36 of the others. Then also from lofty jobs to court corridors, ex-governors fight graft allegations as former county chiefs are on the spot over the same. Then title race down to the wire as Arsenal beat Man United to pile the pressure on Manchester City. Then downtime, Kenya among countries hit by internet outage. Also, village elders may soon be absorbed into civil service as police, NTCA back on roads as schools reopen. Then Azimio threatens demos over new tax proposals. They say that they will not sit back. Now, lastly, from our press reviews, The Citizen from Tanzania that is highlighting why Chinese retail traders now face resistance in Dar es Salaam. Then Tanzania's top techpreneurs, Fatma, agility is key when pivoting to tech, she says. Then international conflict, Israel strikes Gaza after new Rafah evacuation order. Then a lot of inconvenience as lorry operators hijack city service roads. Find more details of that in today's Citizen. Then government mulls single system of collecting business tax and levies as Mother's Day event shines a light on parenting in the digital era. So that is something that you can look out for in today's papers. But of course, as we're heading into the break, we do have our inspirational song this morning, and this particular one is coming in from Lauren Dago saying, "These are the days." And of course, we're in the days of the population census. Just also to remind you, by the way, that our newsreel will be rotating around the same conversation and discussion, of which we will ask you to share your thoughts on the ongoing population census of 2024. But again, yesterday was Mother's Day. Before I even rush into the break, let me check into the team here and see how they passed through the day. Olive, I'll start with you. Olive, Monica, I'll start with you. Mother's Day yesterday.
Well, Mother's Day yesterday, beautiful. Received many messages. I wish that the messages could be accompanied by mobile money messages. What better way to say Happy Mother's Day?
Chantal, how did you celebrate Mother's Day?
I can assure you I had a very restful Sunday.
All right. After the break, we do return. But first, our
his recent comments on the awards being given to the commissioners.
He was right on the money, if I'm to put it in that way. And speaking of the president, let me check on Olive, Monica, Najuma, someone who would be highly interested in a topic of that nature, if you ask me. But of course, we shall have to first hear from her. Good morning, Olive.
Oh, good morning, Jerome. How was your weekend?
My weekend was okay. And here I am, again, looking happy for a fresh new week. I don't know how you are, and I don't know whether you are counted.
Oh, I am great. I'm great. It's a fresh new week. I'm excited, new to see what this week brings on board. And yes, I was counted. At least the enumerators came to my home, and they didn't only come, they knew how to use the tabs. They were functioning pretty well, vis-a-vis what I've heard from some other parts of the country.
Hope you didn't offer.
Was it a male enumerator yesterday?
I beg your pardon?
Was it a male enumerator or it was a female?
Sonko, what are you trying to do?
No, I'm just trying to imagine.
Right now you're attacking America, but it was female enumerators.
I don't know what is your comment on whatever is happening in the country, more so with the president's stand on the ongoing situations in Parliament.
Well, according to the president, he was questioning whether or not the service awards are legal. And if they're not legal, what is the Attorney General doing about it? And I like the part where he said that we should not just morally talk about these. We should actually seek to politically bring to book the people that are concerned if it is found that the awards were illegal. And of course, many questions that the president raised, and I'm happy that he did, although of course some people are wondering, the president has spoken up a bit late, but for me, I believe in the concept of better late than never. He has now queried this, and we wait to see, will they be asked to return the money or not? Because when you think about it, Jerome, a lot of money was exchanged by just a group of people, $500 billion shillings to the former leader of opposition, Matthias Mpuga. Then the other commissioners each got 400 million shillings. And the president did say, we are struggling to find money for infrastructure like roads, like hospitals, and people are here sharing money. Where did the money come from? Why are they getting this money? So I'm waiting to see how this is going to be. I saw the IGG saying that she's also going to look into some of the queries that have been raised even against the Speaker of Parliament. So we'll wait and see.
Well, we're indeed waiting to see what will happen at the end of it all. But nonetheless, to you, dear Ugandan, you need to be prepared, because at any time from this week,
was brought to you by
Just take a polite loan of 200 to stock my shop.
the signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
On the night of 9th May 2024 is when we officially kicked off the journey for the population census here in Uganda. After 10 years that we had held the National Population and Housing Census, and this is the 6th National Population and Housing Census here in Uganda. But when you also come to think of it, down the road from the 10th of May when we officially kicked off the count, because it started midnight, that was of Thursday night, and of course ushering us into Friday morning. And then from there, the population census or the population count or the enumeration kicked off. A journey that we as the national broadcaster brought to you live on Friday with some of the situations that were ongoing in Kampala. But here we are, 4 days, and the national census is ongoing till the 19th of May. The bigger question is, have you been counted? Have the enumerators finally located you? And have you participated in this population census? That is a question I'll leave to you, our dear viewer. But of course, to be part of our conversation this morning, as we look at the situation around the national census 2024, our concern and our poll question for the day is, share your thoughts on the ongoing national population and housing census of 2024. As we look into how far we've gone through the first 3 days of the census, we just want to break down for you what has been happening, and of course, to also give you more details in regards to what will happen afterwards. The team and I are here to make sure that we have this for our discussion in our newsreel. Chantal Oliver Kandinda and Olive Monica Najuma. And I'll quickly start off with Olive Monica Najuma, who geared up the entire interactions on Friday. But of course, besides that, she is the first person on the team to be counted. Monica, good morning once again.
Good morning, Jerome.
Looking at the population census, what have been your key observations so far? We have 4 days. Today is the 4th day, if I'm to put it in that way. But the first 3 days, the enumeration process, in your observation, what has been, the growth or the progress, if at all there has been any?
Well, there have been gains and misses. In my opinion, there have been more gains. And of course, many people misunderstood the message when they were told that they should stay home on Friday, having been gazetted as a national holiday for the census to start, the census undertaking to start. So many were under the pretext that they would be counted that very day, which is actually not the truth, because it's a big country. And not everyone could be counted on day one. But we have up until the 19th of May for all of us to be counted. And in my case, in Chira municipality, the enumerators did come home, and me and my family and my neighbors, we were counted. But I've been following the conversation regarding the census undertaking all through. And for the first time, Jerome, by the way, the government is single-handedly bankrolling this process. We have not gotten any funding from foreign countries to undertake the national census or the national population and housing census. So government released over 333 billion shillings for this undertaking. And there were questions about how the money has been used, but the National Bureau of Statistics says that most of that money actually was used to, first of all, recruit enumerators and their supervisors, training them, and also procuring the tablets that they are using. But of course, you have seen some social media videos. I don't know if the people that were purporting to be enumerators were actually real enumerators, but in some cases they were claiming not to have been given uniforms for easy identification when they go to people's homes. And also some of them were claiming that they don't know how to use the tabs appropriately to take the data. And others were saying the tabs were not functioning well. And personally, those are some of the views I've had so far, but we'll share more as we continue with this conversation.
Well, before I quickly run to Chantal, I also want to understand more about some of the questions that are part of, you know, the enumeration process or a part of the questionnaire. I did see someone sharing on social media saying that there is also a question rotating around how many television sets one person has. I don't know if that question was forwarded to you also. Then there was also some other person who shared that, well, they asked if at all anything wrong happens to you, who is the first person you run to? Is it the LC chairperson, or are you going to make a phone call back home? And this person responded, I will run on Twitter to make alarms. I don't know if those are some of the questions that were there, but what we do know so far is 180 questions, though not everyone answers the 180.
That's true. Not everyone answers the 180 questions. For instance, this year, they are going, UBOS plans to count the persons living with disabilities in different 9 categories. Back in 2014, there were only categorized under 3 groups, but now there are going to be 9 of them. So each and every one of them will have a separate set of questions that they will be answering. So when people hear 180 questions, the concern is that it will take so much time, but actually it might take less than 15 minutes if you ask me. And it's true that they will ask you certain questions, I think according to what they see. They will ask about your level of education. They will ask about your marital status. They will ask about the number of children you have if you're a woman. And of course, they will already know they will already know your age. So it will help them to government to later on understand that women of, let's say, 15 to 49 are giving birth, or these are the births, the number of births we have per woman, or per woman in this region, which helps the government to understand and use this data in terms of planning for the population. So, for instance, in my case, they asked about my children, they asked about my level of education, the children's education, are they in school, are they studying within the municipality or outside the municipality, and questions of the sort.
Well, Chantal, what has been your observation so far of this year's census?
The first thing I have observed is a bit of negative sentiments that are being thrown all over the place by certain members of our communities. Some tend to have the misconception, first of all, that this census is meant to increase taxation on the Ugandans, apparently, and this is something that UBOS has come out to dispel. That is one. 2, and also give confidence to Ugandans that, listen, you are being counted and any information being collected is confidential. Every enumerator has been made to swear an oath of silence, so they're not supposed to put out information about you whenever they come to you. So that is the first thing that I have noticed. Well, we can go into the conversation of the cause, but for now, that is what we are seeing. Misconceptions about the whole process. Then also the news that has been making rounds all over social media. We saw reports from Fort Portal, people complaining. We saw people, or even on social media, saying, I have not been counted. I think I saw this particular lady, Sarah Videte, making noise on Twitter that she had not been counted. And Dubos was polite enough to come out and say, well, the exercise runs until 19th. And within that time, you will have been reached. However, she mentioned something in her submission. She said, are you waiting for us to return to work, and then you come and start stipulating and assuming? And that is something that maybe UBOS needs to put into consideration. Some people stayed at home on Friday and throughout the weekend with the thought that they would be counted because that's when they would be available in their homes. For example, if I'm not at home, if you're coming to count people in my area and I'm not at home and nobody's at home, how will you know How will you know? Yet you've counted my neighbors, for example. So some of those conversations are all over the place, and hopefully UBOS has a plan to be able to counter the conversations, because they build up into some can I call them negative thoughts or attitudes towards the whole process. But also, in my own opinion, and maybe a few, I don't know if the team agrees with me, I would say that we are sort of using a rudimentary system to carry out this year's census in a digital era where we are doing all these transformations, where we are looking at technology taking over, you know, day in, day out. Don't you think, Sonko? Don't you think this is a rudimentary system?
What do you mean by rudimentary, though? Because this is Uganda's first digital census ever.
But of course, when you look at it,
I believe it is combined. You cannot say it's a digital census, yet you have people moving from house to house, collecting data from people, yet there could be a system put in place where you do not have to have people moving deep into Chira, deep into Koboko, deep into Moyo district to carry out this census, yet it can be done digitally.
Because when you know, that also brings me to the concerns around the ongoing census. I want to believe, Monica, you've been able to identify some of these concerns, not only from your side of things, but also from the public in relation to the census. Many people are criticizing whatever is ongoing. Well, of course, others are politicking. Others, it's because of, you know, culture or religious denominations. But let's look into some of the concerns that have been shared by some Ugandans who feel there are some loopholes here and there within this year's census.
For a census that is also termed as the digital census, the first historical digital census in Uganda, there has been concern that in as much as government spent so much money on procuring tablets that are supposed to be used by enumerators to take people's data, that in some cases people are using hard papers like pen and paper. And the big question here is, how sure are we that the information they are taking of us will be safeguarded so that we do not have a risk of our information being out there? And of course, now Chantal has just raised another concern that in this digital era, why do we have people moving from house to house collecting data? Personally, I think it's okay, because how are they taking this data if largely the 115,000 enumerators are using the tablet to take down information rather than pen and paper like it has been the case in the former censuses? I think that we have moved an inch or a few steps forward. But other concerns actually out there is the fact that in some areas, people are saying the enumerators have not yet come. And of course, there has been the question of enumerators also complaining that they have not gotten their compensation in time. So it's a lot. And of course, there is the politicking of the entire situation, where opposition actors are claiming that there is a it's been deliberate that some of these glitches are happening so that we don't get the exact number of the people that we have, given that we are going to the elections very soon. So, but that is from the opposition players. I don't know if there is a meat to that bone so far, but it's one of the thoughts I've seen on social media, especially on X.
And also appearing on a local media channel, radio, that was on Saturday, the executive director of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, Dr. Chris Mukiza, revealed that by Saturday, close to 5.6 million Ugandans had been counted. So I don't know whether my viewer or any of us in studio was among, and in that question, that is Olive Monica in the situation here. But just to quickly run this down for you, our dear viewer, is that the UBOS Act of 1998 mandates the agency to coordinate, monitor and supervise Uganda's national statistical system. There was a section of the public that had expressed fears that UBOS may collect their information, especially about finances and businesses, then later on pass it on to the Uganda Revenue Authority, who in turn will use it to hunt them down over tax issues. Of course, Ugandans have their own insecurities, if you're to put it in that way. Chantal, you did mention something very critical, which is also a huge concern, by the way, because day one, we had reports that some of the tablets that were being used for enumeration were faulty. And when you look at it from an angle of saying we are doing a digital or we are carrying out a digital census, were we prepared enough for the digital census?
But Chantal, before Chantal answers you, Jerome,
yes.
When you say that we have a national population and
yes.
housing census,
yes.
but then you want to do everything remotely and digitally, do we have a system to begin with that not every single house that is within the borders of this country, before we even say that we don't have to move house to house to get these numbers?
No, we don't, by the way, unfortunately. Because when you also look at our internet, let's also look at the internet connectivity, by the way, in the entire country, you'll get to realize that it's still limited. And some areas where not so many Ugandans have access to the internet, and yet it is what the enumerators are supposed to be using. But besides that, Shada, when you look at the digital situation, besides our readiness for it, because it does seem like we weren't as ready as we expected, but what other major concerns from your side of things have you noticed?
The other area of concern I have noticed would be on the reports that have been coming in. Some of the enumerators citing that the money they're supposed to be given is not being given. Not that they're supposed to be given 50,000 Uganda shillings per day. Also, they're supposed to be given reflector jackets and any other thing that is supposed to enable them carry out this process. But we have seen these reports coming in, and we all do know that bad news or negative news spreads even faster. According to Olive Monica, she says when the enumerators came to her place, everything was working and functioning really well. The pictures you see of the enumerators, for example, at Dr. Kano Kizabesije's home, they look, properly dressed in the way they're supposed to be dressed. When you look at the comments that have been coming in from different people who have been counted, everything seems to be okay. So there is that as well. But like I said, the negative news or the bad news will spread even faster and it will be blown out of proportion. So hopefully the UBOS is ready to manage, one, the bad PR that could be out there and anything negative that could come out of this whole exercise. Yeah.
And well, to your dear viewer, we now bring this conversation to you with our opinion poll of the day. And of course, you can go onto the X app, UBC TV Uganda, using the hashtag UBCGMU and share your opinion on what we are discussing. And of course, on our WhatsApp number 0709602592 as well. What we're asking today is, what do you think about the current status of the 2024 National Population and Housing Census? What do you think about the current status of the 2024 National Population and Housing Census? That is our poll for the day. So you can share your views and opinions on the same. I'm already seeing some comments coming along. I will be going through some of them later on as we're summing up with our discussion. Olive Monica, do you think it's also the right time for us to have a conversation rotating around the conditions of some of the enumerators? Before Friday, news was moving around in Chitoro, to be precise, not Chitoro, around Entebbe Road, if I'm not mistaken, where some of the enumerators along the road were threatening to boycott the entire the process, citing issues to do with their allowances. And please do note, our dear viewer, like Chantal Oliver Canada has put it, 50,000 Ugandan shillings per day is available for each enumerator, which means they will be working for 500,000 non-taxable income for the 10 days of enumeration. And then 60,000 per day, which is equivalent to 600,000 Ugandan shillings by the end of the 10 enumeration days for the supervisors. As at the top of it all are the town clerks, who are supposed to be earning 65,000 a day, equivalent of 650,000 at the end of the entire enumeration. Monica, is it the right time for us to have a conversation around the well-being or the welfare of the enumerators, putting in context a certain enumerator who was stabbed in Buikwe?
Yeah. It is the right time for us to have this conversation, because if UBOS is telling us, on Friday we had the public relations officer Nancy Anyango here, and she was saying that most of the money has been put to use in different categories, and one of them was to procure the tablets, and the other to train enumerators and also their compensation. So now, if the money was there and the money was released, and we also know that the reason why most private media players have not been part and parcel of this census undertaking was because NAB was fronting that they needed to be compensated for them to have their media stations run the census undertaking. So, and Yubos was saying, yes, we had this money, but it was put to use in this and this and that, including paying enumerators their allowances. So if less than 3 days of the undertaking, they are complaining about money. Now we need to know, where is the money? Who was supposed to pay them? Why weren't they being paid? And if they were not being paid, is there an investigation going on? Is the person that was in charge of ensuring that enumerators are catered to questioned? Are they answering certain questions? So this is the right time for us to have these questions. And I remember asking Nancy on Friday, are you sure that a year from now, the Auditor General will not come up with an audit report saying that the money that was released for the census undertaking was misused or mismanaged? And she said, no, we have used the money in a straightforward manner. Something like this will never happen again. Now you hear things like this. But also, Joram, I would like for you to know that for the people complaining that enumerators have not yet reached them, or that they don't know when the enumerators are going to go to their homes, there are two things here. There are people that will be counted even in their places of work, so they don't have to be worried. But also, there is the other question of the estimate. So we have a national census, but sometimes they may not be able to count each and every head. Though if you've done research before, you know that you get a sample space, and then according to that sample space, you can now make an estimation. That's why even in the previous census, there was an estimation of 36.426 million Ugandans. Not exact, you can give and take. You've started rounding off to the nearest number. And right now we are estimated to be around 45, 46 to 49 million Ugandans. Yes. And we are also projected to be about 100 million people by 2050. So people will complain about certain things. There are key takeaways from this. Maybe for me, the big question, Sonko, is we had 10 years. 10 years to prepare, yes. 10 years to be ready, 10 years to procure the tablets, 10 years to be more digital. So how come we have tablets that are not working, yet they were procured last year?
You know, I even wanted to ask Chantal the same question. When you look back at the last census, we were preparing for this. And the reason the census was pushed to this year, not 2023, was because of lack of preparedness. And of course, it was a little bit financial. But again, it does look like some of the signs show that maybe we weren't prepared enough.
Definitely, when you look at how some of the things we do as a country run, some of them, you realize that there is a bit of lack of preparedness. Some will cite issues like non-availability of funds at a particular time to enable thorough and proper preparation, and that they will definitely tell you it's beyond their control. But I believe we could have prepared ourselves better. But also, the part of estimation may be inevitable. But then again, if for example you're counting a particular area and some people are at work, and then there is someone else at work counting. So if at home there is maybe a house help or even a mother, and then they've counted the father, then the father at work is also being counted. And we see in cases of double counting as well. And if we are also getting some estimates where we are adding some people, doesn't that mean that we are having more people being stated in our report than we should be having? How about we now start to look for ways where we can have close to very accurate results? For us, if now that we're looking at proper planning and all, how about we think about something like that?
Can I clarify on that?
Sure.
According to Uganda Bureau of Statistics, there won't be double counting because they have a system in place that will ensure that the system they have already, when you someone else gives your information, for instance, if let's say your son at home is old enough to know your information, when they come to UBC to count and I give my information, it will code me as already counted. And then the floating population, that is the people in transport, people in the night economy, street children, and even still people like right now we are floating because we are not at home. If they count us, apparently they're supposed to give us special cards to indicate that we have already been counted so as to avoid being double counted.
And now
lastly, Lastly, with the negative information that is out there, yes, UBOS is doing their best to dispel all that. How sure are we that we are getting the most accurate information from households that could be having a bias towards the system? We saw a report of Nakaseke where one cult leader was saying, first, we don't want to be counted because of their apparently beliefs and all. So how is UBOS prepared to handle
We also have a
something
problem
like
with those people. Let me get into some of these comments, ladies, before we even break off here. I do have a comment coming in from a viewer. He didn't leave his name. This one is actually welcoming Chantal back. He says, Mr. Kanenda, welcome back. Thank you for the smartness in you. Oh. That's a good line. But away from him, I have another comment. This one also didn't leave his name. He says 180 enumeration questions for what? Please do note that you won't be in a position to answer all of those. There are some that do not necessarily relate to everyone. This one says, good morning, UBC. This is Issa from Lira City. Assuming I'm working in Lira City and my family is staying in a different district, I know that my wife will give my information when asked. Do I need to be enumerated also? Well, it's something that Monica has been sharing here, saying that with the system, if someone shares your information, then it will automatically reveal that you've been counted. This one says, good morning, I love the digital census, but however, digitalization comes with a lot. She puts data, airtime, which enumerators and supervisors are not catered for. I don't know if you are an enumerator, but that's a huge concern. Then this one says, we are in a technical transition, so using laptops is not a crime. The only gap that was there is that they did non-cluster households, which would help household members to know about the date when they would be visited prior to the beginning of the exercise. This has made people wait, expecting, but in vain. However, the enumerators are doing their best. This one also says, thank you, my good friends, for the show. I'm Chigwe Livingston of Ndeje Division in Reza. I think UBOS went in this exercise unprepared because there are so many loopholes in the process, starting with the very enumerators, the gadgets they are using, and also their roadmap. Because where a few Ugandans have been enumerated, most of the neighbors have been left out in the process. This means we shall not be able to realize the target mission. Thank you. You also didn't leave your name. Oh, he did, sorry. Then lastly, I'll go with this one. It says, lack of funds in time. How come we cannot afford to reward our members of parliament? Sitting on commissions of billions of money at a time when the economy is at its worst recession. This is Silva in Mutukula, at the Mutukula border. Well, ladies, lastly, I'll go back to you, a minute each, as we're summing up with the conversation. Monica had a burning point to put across. You will use this minute to put it.
It was regarding still the whole conversation about the census. You see, for instance, the Njili cult that says they are not believing in the whole census procedure. They also, by the way, do not believe in national vaccination campaigns. And I think the big question for me here is, why are Ugandans becoming non-receptive of government programs? Maybe the government needs to start there. What have we done wrong that people would rather not take part in the programs that we run for the country and for the benefit of themselves and the country? If we can answer that question, if we can find a way of bringing Ugandans back to the same table of agreeing to do certain things. I'll give you an example. In the early 90s, when we had a campaign against polio and we had these vaccinations, everyone was on board because it was concerning every one of us and there wasn't so much resistance. The same applies to the fight against HIV and AIDS. And because we did work on it collectively, Now we have very few numbers of infections as compared to the 18% we used to have in the 90s, and now we are like at 5.3. What am I saying? There is something that has made Ugandans turn against government programs like this, and that's the question the government needs to answer. But also, when we have undertakings like the census, why is it that when we roll it out, we seem so disorganized, yet a lot of time and money has been given to this venture?
All right. It's a bigger question there. Chantal Oliver Kandinda in a minute as we are summing up with our newsroom.
I will still take the same line and say in politics there is something called popularity. And this goes to every political leader, but also when it comes to governments, you're going to look at popularity of, one, the government itself, but also popularity of the systems and the activities that are being put in place by the government. So if you are having any negative sentiments towards that, that means there is a bit of loss in popularity of the systems and activities, and that needs to be, we need to know why some of those things are happening, because at the end of the day, if you are saying you need accountability for the taxes you are paying, how many of you are paying taxes? The government needs to know. That's why the population has to be known. You need to know how many people at the end of the day. So you cannot plan for those that you do not know, and you can't account for what you do not know as well. So let's try and be as positive as we can be. At the end of the day, it's for the good of the Ugandans.
Accurate information is something that we really need to take seriously. But not only that, remember to participate in the population census of 2024, and if you've not been counted, be patient. We still have more days to go. I'm Joram Paul Sonko, Chantal Oliver Kandinda, and Olive Monica Najuma. Now, coming up next is the GMU Tourism Express with Alan Namisango. Later on, business and the traffic updates along the way. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala. We have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Anything that you'd want to know about Uganda's tourism, this is the perfect time for you to always tune in and listen to what is happening in the world of travel in Uganda and East Africa at large. Well, today it is an interesting edition that we are having. It is not one of the usual ones that we have where you're used us taking you to those beautiful places that make us really the Pearl of Africa. Today we are in a conversation with the Public Relations Officer of Uganda Tourism Board and talking about a particular expo that is happening on the 23rd to 25th of May 2024. This is the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo. In short, it is Powati 2024 that is happening. It is the 8th edition. It has been there, and one of the aims, it is to promote Uganda's tourism, because the mandate for Uganda Tourism Board is majorly one, to position Uganda as a universally acceptable tourism destination, both domestically and internationally. So the expo is one of the many ways that Uganda Tourism Board is supporting or putting out to see that that destination, the Pearl of Africa, is really out there and bringing in more tourists to the country. So today it is an interesting edition that you're going to know more about Powati 2024. Probably you've seen adverts running on your TV screens. You've seen them maybe on social medias, X, Instagram, Facebook, and you're wondering what is really this about. So today you're going to have all the answers to know what is really happening. And with me, I'm with Dr. Gesa Simplicius from Uganda Tourism Board, the PRA, to talk to us about Powati. Dr. Gesa, you're so welcome here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be hosted here in this show. Yeah. Indeed, Powati, when I talk about Powati, I get signals of excitement because it is one of those signature events we have been waiting for the whole year, a lot of planning, because One, it gives our destination, Uganda, publicity, awareness, because one, we have very many unique selling points as a country.
Yeah.
In fact, we are spoiled for choice as a country to understand what elements we should emphasize because we are exceedingly gifted.
True. When you look at such expos in Kenya, East Africa, we have Magical Kenya, we have Kili Fair in Tanzania. So you see that it is just perfect for Uganda to have such an expo in the country. So please take us through the key objectives of Powate 2024.
The key objectives of Powate 2024 are many, but I'll scale down to 3-4 major objectives. One is to cause awareness, publicity to the country. It is one of the unique selling points the country has through projecting all our tourism offerings. It brings a number of stakeholders, many trade visitors under one roof with the sole purpose of understanding what does Uganda have to sell on our destination market. Because remember, tourism is a very competitive thing, so it has a number of cross-cutting points that need to be emphasized. Two, it is to bring business. It brings business to our local tour companies. We have a number of trade visitors that are coming to the country. These ones come to understand what our itineraries are, where are the opportunities for growth, how do we bring in the visitor index to the country, but most importantly, even cause investments. Partner with our local tour operators to cause investments. Three, it's important to increase the visitation numbers to the country, because it is one of those points we have for shouting out loud to the global market. We have what we call hosted buyers. Hosted buyers come here with two key interests: linking our local tour operators to the source markets abroad that come with the visitors that come to this country, but also to develop itineraries, to know which routes. For example, if I wanted to go to Machishon, what are the elements that I need to consider before I bring visitors to the country? So it helps draw those maps. But also bring in domestic tourism. We have what we call a consumer day, where we call upon all our countrymen here to flock to Munyonyo to come and see what areas our tourism attractions are in, where are the packages that can help them go to these areas, but which companies to take advantage of, because you may want to book a tour, but when you don't understand who to approach. But also earn good discounts as people who have gone to the trade fair, to understand which tour company can give me the most competitive rate that enables me reach the national park or any area.
Just to cut you short there, Dr. Gesa, when you talked about Munyonyo, where the expo is going to be, why Munyonyo?
Munyonyo has the most recently inaugurated state-of-art convention center.
Yes.
The best so far in East Africa. It beats in seating capacity and a lot of significant layout, the one we have in Kigali, which had been the top. So right now, we have the most selling convention center across East Africa and Africa at large.
Okay.
So Munyonyo is going to offer space that will house the entire exhibition, and it's a comfortable place, it's a beautiful place. So it's a unique selling point for the country.
Okay, that is interesting. That is it that we heard from Dr. Gesa, the head of PR at Uganda Tourism Board. Well, I should say that in Uganda, the two arms of tourism operation are two: agent marketing and digital marketing. And I think currently digital marketing is not so bad. So if you have digital marketing on one hand and you can have agent marketing on the other, I think you can be able to lead the tourism sector and just be at the top as your tour company or hotel. So I think it is an opportunity for you to come and probably meet your next agent that could be marketing for you in London, marketing for you in Turkey, marketing for you in all those beautiful countries where you would want to source your clients. So it is an opportunity for you to show up at the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo and open up doors that you never thought that you would. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you tomorrow.
Well, and it's now business time, and we're starting off with Uganda's agricultural sector because NGOs promoting better farming methods have introduced agro-ecological products to the market economy of eastern Uganda. Now, Professor Charles Sechewa from Center for Ecosystem Research and Development Uganda revealed to UBC that they are monitoring and encouraging the growing of organic foods. This monitoring project is expected to take on after its initial stages were launched this year. Now, from Center for Ecosystem Research and Development Uganda, Professor Charles Sechewa revealed that they are farming and also training farmers in production on how to carry out agriculture using organic fertilizers or manure without the dangerous chemicals associated. They also train processors and market dealers, as well as awarding them with certificates to train other community members. He says they have ready markets at Abaita Babidi, that is along Entebbe Road in the central market for the processed products. Also, the program manager at Teka Transformation, William Echeku, one of the trainees, said that they collaborate with research programs and programmers with over different various organizations to increase transition in availability of products. Also, the community members appreciated the agroecology, which they did not understand before, and they further encouraged their community members to avoid early drinking, to join the women in trainings or better farming agricultural methods to save their community from hunger. And also putting into use in regards to cooperatives and how far different circles are pushing for a national cooperative bank. The State Minister for Cooperatives, Frederick Ngobi Gume, has urged cooperatives to foster unity for a national cooperative bank in the country. A two-day training which was held in Barara City, cooperators from the Western Uganda and Kigezi discussed the National Cooperative Bank and how they can see this come to pass. Ngobi emphasizes the importance of unity among cooperators, saying that they have to ensure that before government comes in or steps up to support them, their unity is supposed to be paramount, and it should be something that should fuel their desire and hunger for a national cooperative bank. Now, Ivan Asimwe, Uganda's Cooperative Alliance Limited's General Secretary, revealed that the bank's establishment in solving interest rates and challenges is something that they want to look on. They want to look at as a critical turning point for Uganda's cooperative history and also for the initiation of a national cooperative bank. Now, efforts for a new bank indicate renewed financial empowerment initiatives, especially for the low-income earners and for the farmers within the country. And well, now lastly, from Uganda's business world, we speak matters dairy business, because the dairy experts have strongly cautioned against the consumption of raw milk, and they've been urging the public to opt for processed milk for betterment of their health. They argue that the processed milk undergoes rigorous testing and pasteurization processes, ensuring that it meets all safety standards compared to the raw milk. Now, technological advancements in milk processing has made a paradigm shift in milk production. Now, also, a dairy expert with SNV, Ikeriza Stephen, highlights the need for processed milk due to its thorough testing, pasteurization, and packaging. Now, he notes that Uganda's high milk production from the western region, which is standing currently at 46%, but suggests that we should prioritize local consumption for increased revenue. Now, Sidon Mark, Quality Assurance Manager at Lakeside Dairies, warns of adulterated roadside milk, while processed milk is labeled for clarity and safety. As Uganda promotes safe milk consumption, statistics show per capita that consumption is at 64 liters, below the World Health Organization's 200-liter recommendation of daily consumption. Now, also processors offer diverse milk products at lower prices to encourage wider consumption among other consumers. Now, of course, many of the consumers in Uganda have been highly cautioned and also encouraged to consume more of the processed milk than raw milk, because the processed milk does meet the standards of the World Health Organization. But well, also the players are pushing for the consumption to increase here in Uganda. Daily consumption of milk or dairy products. Not only should we be looking at the exporting levels, but also the consumption rates need to also increase from the local perspective of things. Now, lastly, let's look at the forex market and see how various currencies have been faring on the exchange as we move into a fresh new week. Now, the US dollar was buying at 3,779.54 shillings and 3,789.54. And closing time at the weekend saw the US dollar buy at 3,775.08 shillings while selling at 3,785.08 shillings. And the Great Britain pound was buying at 4,715.07 shillings while selling at 4,727.56 shillings. The euro was buying at 4,055.56 shillings while selling at 4,066.31 shillings. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.70 shillings while selling at 28.78 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.45 shillings while selling at 1.46 shillings. As the South African rand was buying at 203.19 shillings while selling at 203.73 shillings. And well, that's how you will find the various currencies faring on the exchange close of as business opens up this Monday morning. Olive Monica Najuma is right here to take you through the traffic updates. Stick around because the Good Morning Uganda agenda comes along after at the top of the hour.
It's Monday, welcome back from the weekend, and now the madness on the roads continues. And we will take up space and start our traffic updates along Gayaza Road, where it connects to Mawanda Road, and see how we can go through Mawanda Road to reach other parts of town. My name is Olive Monica Najuma. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Now, looking at the traffic situation around Gayaza Road, right at the intersection with Mawanda Road, we see that there is a bit of a slow movement of traffic coming in from Gayaza Road side. Actually, right before the intersection at Mawanda Road, around that bypass roundabout, I envision so much traffic jam as of this minute coming in from the roundabout. Looking at the entire roundabout here, or the bypass, you will find that all sections that are coming and feeding into the roundabout are full of traffic jam. Now, moving ahead, going with Gayaza Road to the interconnection with Mawanda Road, the traffic jam situation now loosens up, and as we transition into Mawanda Road, we are now experiencing smooth flow of traffic, at least at this juncture. Now, going ahead, I see that there is smooth flow of traffic at Nsora Road, and of course, continuing with Mawanda Road, there is still smooth flow of traffic. Now, at the point where Mawanda Road intersections with Chisingiri Street, here now we are experiencing a bit of traffic jam along Mawanda Road, and also some shows of traffic jam that is starting to build along Chisingiri Street. And when we focus on Chisingiri Street, from the northern bypass to Chisingiri Street, we see that there is slow movement of traffic coming in from this side. Now, going back and focusing still on Mawanda Road to see how now that turns around to other sections of town. I see that right after the intersection at Chisingiri Street, there is now slow movement of traffic in some sections and then smooth flow of traffic in others. So it keeps interchanging. You might be delayed in some sections and then you might be able to move smoothly in others. But what I see is that as we are approaching Tufnell Drive, now here you're going to experience a bit of a traffic jam along Mawanda Road. That there, what you see is the traffic jam situation right before you cross into Tufnell Drive. Now, along the same drive, we see that there is traffic jam coming through from that side. And as we follow Tufnell Drive, we see that now we have smooth flow of traffic along Tufnell Drive. Continuing with the same to where Tufnell Drive now transitions into Chira Road, we see that there is signs of traffic jam starting to build up for those going the side of Chira Road. But those coming to from the side of Chira Road, there is actually smooth flow of traffic at this juncture. Continuing with Chira Road and looking at Upper Mulago Hill Road, I see traffic jam that is coming through from Upper Mulago Hill Road feeding into Chira Road. And of course, at the roundabout of Chira Road, where you will find Binaisa Road connecting with Yusuf Ule Road and Chira Road. Around this section, I see traffic jam, especially coming in from Binaisa Road. Actually, looking at Binaisa Road itself, there is a long stretch of traffic jam coming through from the New Mulago Gate Road. Around there, there is intense traffic coming from that side of town, transitioning into the roundabout that brings you to the side of Yusuf Ule Road. And what I see is that when you're coming from that side, for the most part, when you're joining the roundabout, you're going to find, if you're going to Yusuf left side, you will find a smooth flow of traffic. But if you're headed to the side of Wandegea, here I see that you might lose a bit of time before you transition into Haj Musa Kasule Road, which looks pretty good this morning. Usually this road has intense traffic jam, but as it transitions into the center in Wandegea, around the traffic lights in the middle of Wandegea, there you're going to encounter traffic jam, those going to Wandegea, those coming to town using Wandegea Bombo Road. For those going Makere Hill Road, there is smooth flow of traffic, at least for now. And that's where we will end our traffic updates for this morning, Monday. We will be back tomorrow to share the same. My name is Olive. Good Morning Uganda continues.
Was brought to you by
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock on my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hustle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala. We have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
All on your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
The cardinal role of a government is maintaining law and order, safeguarding citizens' rights, and providing essential public goods and services. Throughout its tenure, the government has consistently upheld these principles. This foundation creates an environment conducive to delivering crucial social services to citizens through diverse approaches such as taxation, strategic budgeting, and effective policy implementation. A transformative education system, advancing healthcare provisions, enhancing social welfare, and propelling infrastructure growth, all of which continue to evolve daily to cater to the population's expectations. Supported by a meticulously organized network of ministries, government remains committed to serving its citizens. Coming soon on your public broadcaster, The Front Bench, your interface with the government every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with Joram Paul Sonko, only on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, a documentary film about our unity as Ugandans and Africans.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are the same people, and genetically we are even the same people.
We are similar people.
We are one.
Pamoja, we are one.
Use that word, pamoja.
Premiering every week from 3rd February to June 2024 at the National Theatre and Indere Center. Daily screenings are from 4th February to June 2024 at Ham Cinemax and the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
107.3 Kampala, 96.9 Mbale, 95.7 Jinja, 98.6 Soroti. You are all covered.
UBC Butego. UBC Butego.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Glad to have your company this morning, and thank you very much for sticking around to Good Morning Uganda. We are off to our GMU agenda this time round. As our conversation this morning is going to be rotating around youth involvement in the East African community integration. As a young person or as a young politician, how involved are you in the affairs of the East African community? And when decisions are being made across the entire block of the EAC, which currently has 8 member states, are you part of those discussions? Do you follow up on the same? This conversation of integration, or the East African community integration, goes way back, as early as the independence of the member states in East Africa, or the journey of the integration kicked off way back after member states within East Africa had got their independence. Of course, the forefathers had made sure that the integration comes in place. And all over, while moving forward across the years, you get to realize that member states have been coming along. And from the startup of 3 countries, we now have 8 member states. But that is not going to be our discussion, because our discussion is looking at the youth involvement and the role of the youth in promoting the East African community integration. And well, I do have the 6th speaker at the East African Youth Parliament, Right Honorable Belinda Amanya, who joins us in studio this morning to have this conversation with you, our viewer. A very good morning, Honorable, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to you too.
All right. And here we are into a conversation that is rotating around promoting the East African community integration, but looking at the role of the young people. And Honorable, my first question would be really looking into the significance of the East African community. First to the young people and their participation in the same. But again, you can send your greetings to your fellow members.
All right, thank you very much. A good morning to our lovely viewers. My name is Belinda Amanya, and I am the 6th speaker of the East African Youth Parliament. Hujambo to each and everyone that is listening in and tuning in today for this discussion. If we are to dive into the discussion on the benefits or the significance of the East African community, to be specific, the youth, I would say it is one that is recognized when one takes interest in it. Because as it has been, the East African integration or the East African community, the knowledge about it has not been too well enriched in the young people. Sometimes you get to places and they don't really understand it, and it is, no, we left it for the older generation to understand. But well, as Mwalimu Julius Nyerere says, that each generation has something to eat, a responsibility. We carry on the responsibility to say that we need to embrace the integration. So when we look at the integration and what it brings to us, especially for the youth, we look at how connected are you? It looks at how diverse, because when you get to put together youth from various places, we have seen it in the East African Youth Parliament. You get to see delegates from Kenya, Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda, all over coming together to have a discussion on what they think are issues that pertain youth around the East African region. Maybe we need to streamline our education systems. Why is this probably why other Kenyans are doing better here? Because we have had exchanges, we've had debates with them, we've had discussions with them. Then you get to understand maybe the understanding on this topic is better. So how do we cross-cut each other? How do we come together, network, and see how we probably work together on better things? We look at commerce itself. How best do we have ideas and grow businesses, because we have youth in business, youth in agriculture, youth in various sectors. So how best do we work together and see cross-border trade and various involvements? And also knowing that we have an East African community, how do we get politically engaged and engage in all the other sectors that it poses to us? So there are various opportunities for education, for learning, for networking, for researching, for even employment that are out there for the various youth, depending on how they get to integrate in the process and understand it and be available for it.
Now, back to the youth, Honorable. When you look at the young people within the region, how familiar are they with the East African integration and the East African community affairs?
To be honest, I have been on a journey, on a trip with colleagues and a team from League ya Vijana, ya Afrika Mashariki, which is also looking at how do we extend deeper this understanding and information about the East African integration. And we've been to Kenya, we've been to Tanzania, we've been to Rwanda, we've also been to Uganda. So when you go to, let's say, youth in Tanzania, they'll tell you, for us, we're a bit more of scattered. We may not, because they do not have a National Youth Council. So from that, they tell you, somehow we don't think that is ours. We say ours is probably all about Tanzania itself. And maybe they do not see much significance. But at the end of the day, when you tell them the various opportunities that are there and various networking platforms, then you see them seek to want to be part of it. But on our assessment, it was not yet fully entrenched. When you come to Uganda, Ugandan youth are more proactive and want to get engaged, want to be participant, want to be part of each and everything, politically involved, socially involved, and in various aspects. And so when you come to Uganda, we're eagerly fighting, how do we do this? How do we call them out? How do we network with them? When you go to Kenya, I tell you, yes, we embrace it. Ubuntu, all of that, we understand it. We'd like to be part. We are forming various coalitions and activities to unite us. You know, when you go to Rwanda, it's a bit, okay, yes, we know about it, but then there's this and this and this, so we operate in certain limitations. So it is all around like that, and with we look forward to get to visit all the various East African community member states. But when you look at the youth, it is not yet deeply entrenched. Yes, we have the East African Youth Parliament, where various youth get to gather together and share ideas. We have the ULID Summit. We have the East African Youth Ambassadors Platform that also looks at how best it can bring various youth, educate them about the integration process and agenda, and see how we get to all embrace the social, kind of like as social cohesion, or the integration more in a social way, and see how we develop and work on the various aspects of the integration. So knowledge and understanding of the East African integration, we are still there, but we believe pole we shall get there, and we shall have it more entrenched in the people, and we shall have them accepting it.
The journey is good so far, but then also you want to believe there are some benefits attached to the integration. And for the young people, what are some of those benefits if a young person gets into the integration and trying to, for those who want to understand more about the East African integration and the entire community as well?
True. When we get to see, for example, where we are going, when you look at, for example, the African Union telling us we are having the SEFTA coming soon, and so as East Africa, we ask ourselves a question as we look forward to the agenda of having the SEFTA come into place, how prepared are we? And so we also explore now the avenues and the various openings that are there. We start from one of, let's say, entrepreneurship. Because when you look at one of the pillars of a common market is how do people get to cross borders? How do I leave Uganda, go to Kenya, be able to, let's say, get employed, be able to start a business there, be able to start a variety of engagements, be able to also study there. Some of the opportunities that are there are those of open trade and engagement into business, as you get to really understand. Last time I was listening to the president of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, at one of the conferences, and he said it is how do we get into the actual economy, how do we become players in the economy. So how do we get there is various youth have businesses, may say in their countries, but when we get to network at regional level, it is how do I carry my merchandise, and it has sale in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in South Sudan, in Somalia, and in all these various countries, and then how do I benefit at the end of the day. So we are seeing a facilitation of cross-border trading among the youth themselves and among the general public. We also look at academic or research opportunities that are available. How do we exchange the knowledge? How do we research on common things together? And also, how do we become better when we look at our education systems and standards, which may be different? So it goes on, we look at also political and social engagement and opportunities. How do we socially work together politically? How do we have leaders that are aspiring for these various positions and seeing that they're on the front line of change in the region? How do youth come up to strategize and see how they lobby for various opportunities? So more of such things, but at a bigger perspective, and to see how do we come together and grow together. How do I tap into the various opportunities in Kenya and Tanzania and all over in the region, and how do I make myself better?
Honorable, as a speaker, I don't know if you've been part of some of the youth-led initiatives within the region, and if you can share your experience with while working on these initiatives and how impactful they have been for some of the participants that are young people.
Well, is the exposure it brings. I, for one, for example, we've worked with Faraja Africa Foundation, which is a major organizer of the East African Youth Parliament. But working with them, you also partner with other organizations. So you get to see that, let's say, Action Aid Uganda, Action Aid Kenya, all get to bring their various youth that are being engaged. When you go to Tanzania, various Tanzanian initiatives and organizations that are engaging young people get to come on board and bring their participants on board. So you get to realize that you're working with fellow young people that are visionary, that are productive, and that are engaging fellow young people. Because one of the principles we look at as the East African Youth Parliament is to engage youth that are already doing something, youth that are already being resourceful. For example, when you come to Uganda, we have the National Youth Parliament. We have people from UNSA, we have NYC, various people coming together. I'm a member of the of the European Union Youth Sounding Board, which is also another group of youth that are engaged in various activities and programs of the youth, but are more of an advisory committee for the European Union in Uganda. And so you find you carry your various experiences, because we have people that represent Omuntu Wawansi, a youth that is down there in the villages through the various CBOs we work with. And so by the time you get to a regional aspect or to a regional platform, you get to understand that I carry a voice of a Ugandan who is deep down in the village, maybe is not connected to the other world. How do I front their views? So when we all get together, you get to realize maybe some of these challenges are not only unique to Ugandans, they are shared, and then you also get to explore on how best are they tackling them, and how best do we put ourselves at a forefront and enlarge more opportunities that we may benefit from and also carry to our various youth in the various representations we carry.
Well, you also get to realize that as we speak integration, governments need to be at the forefront of this conversation. Why? Because they make the policies that favor the young people. And when it comes to youth involvement in the integration process, how best do you think these governments or these mother governments can support? How supportive can they be to the young people within the region?
First, I'd like to start assessing from, for example, the Yala itself.
Okay.
When you look at the Yala composition and you look out for the youth that are there, they could be scanty, could be very few. Recently we were in Nairobi, and when they were passing the motion of the youth caucus, And we were glad and excited to know that we have people like Honorable Karobia that were pushing for this. When Honorable Minor, remember when we had a discussion with Honorable Minor and he told us, no, we're pushing for a youth caucus so that your voices can now be more amplified and given attention to in the Yala itself. But when you get to look at the whole team, there are not so many, and now it goes back to the government. Who sends the various Yala delegates or the various, Yala honorables that get to represent the various countries? They are the various governments that get to put these people into power or get to front them. Okay. So how best or how into youth are these governments? Are they making sure that out of, let's say, the 10, at least 3 or 2 are youth? Or it is whoever comes up, and how are they supporting them? Now, then again, it now slopes down to on the various ministries of East African affairs in the various countries. How much are they working with the youth? Last time, Right Honorable Kadaga was on the floor of Parliament, and he was telling them, we need more funding to support the various youth initiatives and the various youth that are coming up. When you also go to Kenya, Tanzania, it is still the same problem. Youth are not fully being empowered to be there because we are powerless without our states having will and having contribution to bring us to the front. Because it is at a state level, so it starts from home, and then it matures to a regional level. So on that ground, I still think government still needs to put in a lot. More funding to these activities. Initiatives come up, youth are willing to do things, but without financial capacity, there is no way I'm going to make it to, let's say, network with people in Tanzania without having transport to take me from here to there to engage with them. Then when we sit and discuss, so it all goes back to how best are they creating opportunities for youth to be involved and to be part of this various discussions. So in my analysis, I would say government still needs to do more. It still needs to take this crucial and serious that when you talk about youth integration, youth participation, it needs to be actualized and seen in the various representations that they put out for us to say this is a country that is supporting. And then finally also, for example, last time we're glad to see that His Excellency Ruto was willing to support youth in Kenya and also at the East African region, saying no, if we're having the youth caucus come up, then we are ready to support them financially and create other avenues. They can have an office as a youth caucus. So you get to really see that there is political will from that side. So in countries where there is no political will, you have less say, you have kind of like less involvement. And so we get to hope that in the head of states, we get to see our presidents and various stakeholders take the forefront to say we are deliberately creating such avenues and spaces for our youth so that we can all have level ground.
Earlier, you've mentioned something about markets and business.
Yeah.
And one would wonder if entrepreneurship and innovation can contribute to the East African youth integration, because many of the young people are practically involved in business today,
Sure.
entrepreneurs, so to speak. And when it comes to the world of innovation, many are directly involved in technological, advancements, and, various innovations are being, made by the young people. How can we use the entrepreneurship and innovation, to bring together integration amongst the member states?
I'd like to say that I think it was around COVID, there's a way COVID opened to us that actually digitalization of markets, digitalization of various entities is the way to go. It showed us that we are not limited as long as if we can network digitally, then there is no barrier to how far or how broad we can network and get together. And so when you look at commerce and business and entrepreneurship, we get to see that it is an easier way. There's so many physical barriers and physical customs that get to hold us and bind us from, let's say, not connecting. But when we go digital, we get to see that there are more avenues. Currently, there was a science, technology, and innovation conference that was held in Nairobi around the 5th of March. And those were some of the things they were looking at. I'm told there's an initiative, there's a funding from the European Union to see how we can digitalize the East African region as we look forward to, let's say, joining the entire broader Africa at the SEFTA. And so with that, you get to see that various young people, stakeholders, and key players in this were being trained on how do we set up thriving economies or thriving businesses on these various platforms. How do we engage youth in these things. So when we go to business, it is how do I market myself? Which avenues? Is it social media? Are there various e-platforms that have been created by the various countries? And we see that youth can get to thrive there. The terms and policies are more favorable. And we are able to trade and have business ideas. And also with League ya Vijana, ya Afrika Mashariki, is an initiative where we're looking at how do we empower young people. After talking to them, can we have shared economic activities that we get to carry out as East African youth?
Okay.
Yeah, and so how do we get to put our minds together? We've been having discussions on that. What can we work on together and see that each and every youth is economically being supported, and then we can integrate and unite at a point of we are benefiting economically, we are growing markets within Uganda and expanding them outside Uganda, and also look into things like quality and standard and get to understand how do I as a youth be able to produce or engage in business or entrepreneurship that is at a standard of thriving in another country.
Oh, okay.
So
let's
it's more
also
of that
look at how
harmonizing.
supportive the politicians who are already active in the integration agenda have been to the young people. Do we have those conversations whereby the young people are involved in decision making, especially on the regional level? Because as much as we are looking into integration, policy making is very critical. If you are a policy maker, you will have to create room where the young people, who are the majority of the population within the region, are involved, because many of the decisions you're taking are affecting them as well. When you look at our forefathers within the political realm, how supportive have they been, or which kind of support do they need to continue rendering in this agenda of the East African community integration for the young people?
Well, I would say some of them are not so supportive,
okay,
but there are those that are supportive, and maybe in their support we get to see it through how available are they for these discussions. When we call on to them, for example, in Uganda, I'd like to say that Right Honorable Kadaga has really been one of the very supportive ones, that when you have a discussion, you have, let's say, a conference you have organized, she's one of the people you will easily reach out to, and you have her will to be part and see how best she can be able to support the team. And so when we look at our leaders, some of them it is until you look for them, and we've learned the art of, okay, they will not look for us, it is us to create these spaces and these avenues. And so we've resorted to looking out for them, reaching out to them. And most of them comply, others will tell you things like we're a bit busy and all of that. But now, for example, with the East African Youth Parliament, we sit and have discussions on various motions and topics that we think are pertinent, from education, to commerce, to security, to peace, to justice, to gender-sensitive things and topics. We go all over, have discussions, and after these discussions are held, we carry our discussions and motions and we take them to our leaders. So now that we have the Youth Caucus, last time we were seeing how best do we carry our views to the Youth Caucus and say, when you're at the floor of Parliament, please represent us here. We are lucky that we've seen some of our leaders come out when you take to them these discussions and you see them the next day on the floor of Parliament, proposing the things that you go to talk about, proposing the youth agenda. So there are those that are into supporting us. Some of them you reach out to them for financial assistance in the various projects and programs that we carry out. Some of them are actually very compliant. They support you with the little they have. They say, okay, can we lobby from here? Can we connect you to these people that will broaden such and such activities? And then also we have looked at compliance and networking. If you have an organization or an initiative in, let's say, Uganda, so you link up with people, let's say in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Rwanda, all over, to see how do we harness, how do we put our hands together. So when everybody brings in whatever they can and reaches out to whoever they have. So with those collaborations, we are able to tap into various youth. For example, we've had East African youth seminars all over, we're having them all over East Africa. And when you get to Kenya, you will now liaise with your colleagues from Kenya that are into the same agenda, that buy into your agenda, and it becomes easy for them to reach out to their various leaders. And so with that, you get to have them on board, have these discussions, and have them talk to the youth, tell them about the East African agenda, and share with them the various opportunities that are available. So on how handy have they been in? For those that we have reached out and have been able to be present, be available, mentor us and guide us, we say that is highly, even at the Secretariat. Last time we got to have audience of the Right Honorable Speaker of the Yala Parliament. And he gave us audience, got to speak to him. He gave us mentors at the Secretariat and said, no, we assign you to these people. They can guide you and show you way forward. So for those few officers and deliberate people that have come out to support the young people and journey with us, especially on my side, I would really flag off the Iyala itself, from the clerk to the speaker and the various people, on how they've been able to support us and make sure that our voices are heard and give us platforms at the Parliament to speak and have something that is aired out to our leaders and tell them what is really on ground. Would say that we've had political will and support from them.
Let's look at our education system within the member states of the East African community. Is there certain provisions that need to be addressed, or what can we do to make sure that we engage the young people into the East African community integration right from the grassroots? You know, with the education setting, it may not be entirely about politics, but preparing them for the integration from a business perspective and from a social perspective of things.
Well, we get to see that onward. We've seen, for example, an integration of Kiswahili as a key language. Because when you go to other countries around the East African region, the major language that is used is Kiswahili. So if you're not able to express yourself in Kiswahili, you're failing to integrate socially, economically, and even politically, because if that is the binding language, we start from how we're able to speak. So when we get to see schools in Uganda have Kiswahili as a mandatory subject to students as low as primary school to secondary school level, then we say we are building slowly by slowly. Then from that we get to see also on the various topics. When you study in SST, history, etc., there's a bit of East African integration that is incorporated in there to create the picture, to create the understanding. Because when you read and try to understand the vision of the East African agenda or the East African integration, it is how do people that have a similarity in their history, that have various things, let's say, physical features or resources that connect us and bind us, how do we come together, unite and thrive and build stable and stronger economies?
Okay.
So from that perspective, we get to see it in our education system. There is need for maybe more enlightening especially on the youth side, and to groom us in a way that makes us yearn to be part or understand what is there for us in the East African community. Because they keep on telling us the treaties have been signed, the documents have been signed, and we are still at a level of fully actualizing. In the education system, we've had debates and moods coming up that are cross-cutting. You find you're debating with fellow friends from Tanzania, from Kenya, from Rwanda, from all over East Africa, and sharing views. And so it is more of iron sharpens iron. You get to hear what are their views and what are yours. I'm a law student, and so we're also having moods that cross-cut. You get to have mooting opportunities with your various colleagues from other universities all around East Africa, and so you get to know how far are they, and also various exchange programs. We've seen different disciplines of education crossing borders to go and do much more of the benchmarking, and so we say we are on the journey going there, and we see that there's a shaping that is coming on board.
Do we have some obstacles? If you're to look at the obstacles that have limited the efforts of the young people to involve directly into the East African community integration, what may those be? And moving forward, what would be the solutions in your own perspective?
One of the biggest challenges we have is full incorporation or open doors. For example, when you look at the ESC Secretariat, when you read the framework, they highlight and talk about youth engagement and youth participation. And we expect to, let's say, have an East African Youth Council. But the sector of youth is under a small bracket at the Secretariat. And so you get to say, you do not have outright recognition, but it is through, let's say, another body. So we need to have well-defined structures for youth engagement, for youth participation, and we should come out legitimately knowing that we have a space here and we shall be heard and represented and our views shall be fronted. And some of the things that they tell us are things like we do not have funds to enact this, to put this into place. So making funding another big problem that we have in the region or at the ESC. So with challenges like lack of funding, even with the various things we organize, for example, the East African Youth Parliament, we would always wish to have as many as possible youth coming. But even with the whole structure of organization, how do you carry youth from Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda put them in Arusha, you must feed them, you must accommodate them, you must transport them. So with less funding, you find such spaces are limited. If they're saying maybe Uganda, you can only bring 20, Kenya 20, Rwanda, Congo 20, all the other countries bring 20, then you're cutting off. Because if 70% of the youth in East Africa, if 70% of the population in East Africa are youth, and we're only having few of them being put together to have these discussions, then you're limiting other people, maybe because of limitations that come in with finances. And then the other limitation could also be on the knowledge and understanding of this agenda. There's still youth who think that is just political noise by the politicians. Tebi Tugasa. We shall get on board later, maybe when we get into the political space. Yet they forget when we look at cross-border engagements, cross-border trading, cross-border employment and academic opportunities that could be available, they miss out on that because of the knowledge gap.
Okay.
So those could be some of the challenges and also political will from the various member states.
Okay. I do have a comment coming in from a viewer who says, please explain how a youth lowdown in Wakiso, by example, has benefited from the integration conversations and agenda, or how they can benefit. If not yet, tell us how they can benefit. And also he's asking, where is the office in Kampala?
Okay, so when it gets to how has the youth down in Wakiso benefited, it may not be direct because as you also see the various spaces we have less of, it's more of democracy of you're represented by others. So the way you benefit could probably be through the various leaders you have, let's say, fronted, the various youth leaders through the NYC, because we have, let's say, youth through the NYC, having to join us at the East African Youth Parliament and having to push their views. So it is more of an orderly flow. So it still now comes back to how have you been able to support your leaders and push them out there, and how they've been able to collaborate with other leaders and other spaces to create the impact that stays and lasts for them to be part of these things. And then also we get to see that, and through such, your views are being shared perhaps, and there is much more of the fighting to see how do we open more opportunities and more networks. The other thing is that there are more opportunities for youth, especially online, if they're to get to be more vigilant on the various online spaces. There are conferences that network you and expose you and train you on various things, but you would not find them in Wakiso when seated down there. But if you'd follow various platforms, for example, when you go to Twitter, there is opportunity space. Various opportunities are being shared around the entire globe, around Africa, and the conferences that are being publicized, and so you could always find a way of tapping in there. But for the direct attachment, it may be hard, it may be difficult to really realize we are many in numbers, and so benefiting each and every Ugandan becomes hard, especially on a journey we're all struggling to push for. It becomes hard. The other thing I would also say, how do they get more involved? We are having the National Youth Parliament coming up soon. And for example, for Ugandan delegates, we go through the National Youth Parliament. We have regional youth parliaments for North, East, West, Central. So we get to have youth localized, organized by Farage Africa Foundation. They get to have discussions on that level. Then we upgrade to the national discussions. And it is when you have represented the views of your fellow youth at a national level that we think you're fit to go and represent Uganda, because you carry views from as far as your region. If you're from Eastern or Northern, you carry views from Northern Uganda, get to our national platform, get to share them at the platform of Parliament, at the floor of Parliament, and then you can further go forward. So reach out. There's always an online call for participants. Reach out to it, register, apply, and when selected to be among the leaders, to be among the participants, deliberately take part, even on the online engagements, because in most cases it is not every youth can come through, but a youth who is doing something, and a youth who carries an actual voice of someone who is deeply rooted in the various spaces and can carry a voice. So it is, what are you doing for your people that pushes you or maybe qualifies you to be able to speak out for those that you're representing. And then where are the offices? I can say we have offices in Kampala around. However, feel free to reach out to me in your various social media platforms. We are hoping that the Ministry of East African Affairs soon gets to house us through Ligia Vijana at their offices. And so we get to see how do we streamline work with them as a team and youth in Uganda. and push the East African agenda, but we then always sit in Arusha, Tanzania, at the ESC headquarters.
Let's look at our cultural differences within the region.
Yeah.
And if there is any role, the culture exchange can play in fostering the East African integration.
Well, as people, we are social beings, and us being social beings, social is also part of culture. Culture is part of social beings.
True.
So where we can exchange cultures, last time on the floor of our parliament at the East African Youth Parliament sitting, we had some of our members say things like, we need incentivized, let's say, marriages that are supported so that as a Ugandan, it may be easy for me to, let's say, marry in Kenya or Tanzania and so get to have a physical exchange of the various cultures. And so it was one we laughed at, but later we got to really realize that if we are to trade off the cultures, it goes as deep as that. Mm-hmm. It goes to how do we relate, how many exchanges. For example, we have had sports in Kigali, where we have East African sports games happening. We have various players and sportsmen and women gathering in Rwanda to have these games and also socialize and network at that level. So that was also a culture exchange. Last time I saw, I think it was Anne Kansime having something like an exhibition of culture in Nairobi. So if we can have more of those, because we are social beings, for example, in Uganda, happening or socializing is like our biggest highlight, our biggest day-to-day that really happens. So with such things, it is we grow in such ways. How do we exchange that it becomes easy for me to see a Tanzanian brother as a brother and as a person I can call my own, than looking at them as a foreigner. Then from there, we look at when they come to Uganda, how are they treated?
Sure.
We look at it in universities. We have we have a council for various students from various countries that are not Ugandan, and they get to sit and also have to share their views. And they're sharing their views, we are sharing cultures. They tell you maybe we have not been treated well according to our culture. We think we need support here. We need to be understood in such a way. So cultures have been exchanged in that way in the various exchange programs. When you go to study, let's say Strathmore, you get to learn more about the Kenyan tradition and the Kenyan kind of like all the Kikuyu and the various tribes that are there. And so with that, and also still at the parliament, we get to see how, and various platforms like ULEAD, since it is African and East African, we also have cultural nights or cultural evenings where you get to share your cultures, talk about your culture, and at the end of it all, with that kind of integration, we're able to understand and network and see the similarities. Because at the end of the day, we're not too different.
True.
When you meet a friend from and tell you, no. Also as bride price, we exchange cows and say, oh, we also exchange cows. It is okay, how deeper do we go into this? How do you understand this? What do you eat? So we get to exchange on meals, we get to exchange on perspectives and various social issues. And so socially, you get to network on those a few highlighted points that make us feel socially and culturally active and young to be engaged.
All right. And there you have it when it comes to our conversation here this very morning. I don't know whether you as a young person out there has been part and parcel of the East African integration, but of course with the simple background of how far the East African community has come along the journey and how our forefathers, our current leaders, and of course political differences have been able to shape up conversations around the same. When we talk matters East African community integration, we talk security, social aspect, the political space, and of course the business part of things, because at the end of the day, the economy also needs to be upheld. My guest this morning has been the 6th Speaker of the East African Youth Parliament, Right Honourable Belinda Amanya, who has been sharing with us quite a number of things that the young people are doing to engage into the East African community integration agenda. And then, of course, looking into some other issues at hand from the same perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
For joining us. And then coming up after this conversation is Ruben Pima with sports this morning. Stick around. Good morning.